Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The SparkFile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your one-stop vaudeville act for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camian.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us again, welcome back, Sparkler. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. But you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are good questions, and we do have answers.
We do. A Spark File is the place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations. And if you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, you know that sometimes the wellspring of inspiration can run a little dry. That's why we're here to refill it.
We're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our booties and make things like this podcast.
Or a performance that brings new life to a classic character.
Or a concert that expresses your heart through another's lyrics.
Or a family of kind, clever creatives.
Or a seemingly effortless singing voice that sounds like the love child of a bird and a bell.
On today's Makersode, we're going to talk with someone who truly sparks us.
And that special someone is Kelli O'Hara. Kelli! Welcome to
The Spark File.
Does this make me a sparkler?
Yes!
Oh my God, I love your boots.
Oh, thank you. I was just about to change them, actually.
so
Thank you for the
cute.
reminder.
You got a little wedge in there?
That is
always a wedge.
Cute boot.
Always a wedge.
Always a wedge.
Always a wedge with you.
Never
that
not a
too.
wedge.
Sneakers,
I
everything.
feel like just for the folks that are listening at home, we
Let's
should
get the
probably...
sneaks.
It's just an Ugg boot.
That's an Ugg boot?
And I can't find it again. I need a new pair. These are so old. But you remember yours and my torso problem, right? With your legs and my...
I can't believe you brought
so I always
that up.
wear a wedge because it makes me...
In case you were wondering, Kelli O'Hara's... how tall are you? Say it.
I'm 5'4" and 3/4.
Okay. That sounds
But with the
aspirational.
wedge, 5'6".
But I would say I'm a full head taller than you standing. But when we sit down next to each other, you're so long-waisted that
I'm
are
a full
the same.
head taller than you. I think you're misremembering. I think I'm a full head taller than you when we
Roll
sit.
clip. But wait, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Kelli, the Spark File price of admission, we need to hear real quick a creative risk that you have taken recently.
I guess I would have to say that I've been delving back into some classical singing.
Oh,
which is my background, is my degree in college, but it is extremely scary to me. This fall I did Summer of 1915 by Barber with the New York Philharmonic, and It's like I don't remember how many minutes it is, but it's in English, thank goodness. But it's an art piece. It's an art song, and learning it.
Yeah, when you do that, you're off book, right? You don't have the music.
No,
in
I was
front
off
of you.
book and off
how we say
mic
it.
in Geffen Hall.
So you're just
Wow.
spinning that voice out to the back row.
The attempt is there to spin that voice out to the back row. So I did that for 4 or 5 nights. We did it again out of town. Those kind of things. I want to push myself. I want to get to the end of it and say I did that, but whether or not I should be or that sort of thing. But that is a risk, and I took it, and I'm happy I did at this point.
When you're
Well
in the
done.
middle of that risk, how does risk show up for you?
Well, I put this in the same category as singing opera again. I've done a couple of operas at
You
the Met
sure
now.
have.
And one night on the Met stage, right down center, in front of the entire orchestra,
I know where that is. Sure.
during a bit of recit, I went up. And it's in Italian. I was doing Così fan tutti. And I mean, I haven't gone up like that even in my Broadway career or concert career, maybe ever.
Did
And
you know, as you approached it, did you know you didn't have it?
Yes. I knew that I was...
Headed straight for the white
I didn't know
room.
what my name was. It was one of those blackouts. I didn't know where I was. So my way to, there was no prompter, which they often have prompters, but they decided not to because it's such a well-known opera and everybody knows it except for me because I learned it
were
for
you
the
like,
first
the
time.
audience isn't going to sing along with me? Like,
No, so I stood there with the person who I sing with, but it was just me. It was just long rest, like,
in
just
front of an audience.
Yes, Italian.
Wow.
So I stop, and then I think to myself, just open your mouth and it will come out. So I started to sing gibberish on the Met stage. Stopped, realized that wasn't working. Stood there for what seemed like another eternity.
Ooh.
And Christopher Maltman, who is the best guy in the world, who's playing Don Alfonso, knew his cue line because everybody knows their cue line.
Yeah.
And he said, "In Gloria." And I said, "In Gloria," and walked off the stage. That's all I could do. I walked off thinking, please tell me this was a nightmare and I'll wake up from it. And it wasn't, and it happened, and I'm over it. And I went on to do like 9
you're
more
over it.
performances,
Wow.
but I did it. I did it on the Met stage even. I did that.
Go big.
Tell me a
You
little
went
bit about
big.
how we get to I'm over it. How did you get there?
Well,
You had to get back up on the horse. And
I had
do
to
it
get
again.
back up on the horse, and that's exactly what happened because I think the next performance was the HD filming. This was on a Tuesday night.
Wow.
And Saturday, and I was already nervous going in with the Italian. I learned everything. I mean, I'm telling you, I had it backwards and forwards. I think over and over again, if I had just gone back to the beginning of my phrase, perhaps if I had just turned in a circle, I would have, how many times I had stood in my living room and just started the phrase over and over again.
Yeah.
But I couldn't
Couldn't access
figure out
it.
where I was.
Yeah.
So what I did was, now granted, for the entire rest of the run of the show, which is in total like 11 performances, I went over that thing. I did that whole thing that you do where
Yeah.
you go over it and you go over
Yep.
it. But I learned this trick.
Were you also like, hey, turn on the prompter?
Well, there
Yeah,
wasn't.
I
There is no
wondered the
prompter.
same
There's no
thing.
person.
Okay.
They didn't use a prompter for that show.
Oh, a prompter is a person.
A person in the box.
With the book.
Literally, their head is.
That's right. I was thinking
Yes.
of something sort of like some
No,
LED.
I know. A teleprompter.
Okay, yeah.
I began this conversation with myself, and I now use it all the time.
Please tell us.
It is on the side of the stage, and it goes a little something like this. You have done your work. You are here because you earned it. You can do this, and you will walk away having succeeded.
Oh, wow.
And it works, my friends. It works.
Wow.
For the most part, it works because basically, and it accompanies this: shut up, shut up. You are here because you earned it. You have done your work, and you will walk away from it having succeeded. Now, it's not always perfect, but I'm telling you, if I literally say "shut up,"
Really?
To my head.
It disrupts it.
well, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Not you.
Yeah.
I'm in charge. I guess my heart is in charge of my head or
Yes.
something. But I had to because I was killing myself. I was pacing with nerves.
I'm going to make this our new ringtone.
Oh my gosh.
Shut up.
Shut up.
You have done your work.
You've done your work.
You've earned the chance to be here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm nervous right now just talking
having
about it.
succeeded.
I thank you for sharing that. I
That's
feel like thanks
incredible.
for taking us on that little adventure ride. I feel like that is news people can use. I think
hope so.
Like if we say nothing else from this point,
this is
I
a
feel
wrap
like
on this
is
episode
a
of the
great
Spark File.
episode. Boom.
But seriously, sorry, Kelly, you are now admitted into the Spark File. That was
Definitely,
an amazing
definitely.
price of admission.
yay.
You're
Okay.
in.
We should say we're recording today backstage at the extraordinary United Palace, located in New York City at 175th and Broadway. We feel extremely fortunate to be hosted by this beautiful, historic theater. It is truly a cathedral of creativity.
It is. I feel lucky. For people who don't know you, Kelly, here's a 2-part question. When people say, what do you do? How do you identify yourself creatively?
That's funny. It depends on who I'll say sometimes at home, like I'm an artist. We're artists. My husband and I are just artists.
Oh,
That's what I say
great.
because
I
if you
love
get
that.
into I'm an actor,
Yeah.
you get this look like, because they don't know me. So they'll say she's not a working
She must not
actor.
really.
when you say at home, you don't mean in your living room. Do you mean
No, I mean in the town where I live
like in your
or-
neighborhood where you live?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or with
if you're
other
meeting other
moms or-
parents, that
yes.
sort of thing. Got it.
Interesting.
Sometimes I'll say I'm a singer. Sometimes I'll say I'm an actor, but most of the time it's just, we're artists.
And
love
what are you most well known for? So, like when people do know something, what is it typically?
See,
your
that's-
long repertoire.
I bet it could be
Sex
a
in the City.
You're kidding.
I had one line in the.
You were beautiful. I loved
in
the
the
way
second.
you looked in that movie.
I had just had a bit. Anyway, thank you. That's very nice.
You
I
had
was-
that
yeah.
side bun.
Oh,
and
they
that-
were good with the
They
the
turned
makeup and
it
the
out.
fashion. Let me tell you, it was yes.
I mean, you're pretty cute to begin with, not to objectify you, but then I was like,
but then they put some like filter on you and stuff. No,
you
but
look good.
no, I'm kidding. But it is funny when you talk about people knowing who you are. If they've seen anything on television, that's going to be 10,000 times more than all the 20 years
yeah.
of theater work you've ever done.
So
Crazy.
you've done so much Broadway. As you just mentioned, you sing on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera. You have a pretty active concert career. That's how others know you. Of all the things that you have created so far, what are you most proud of?
Well, I'm going to say my babies.
Oh, your baby!
I created those in my tum-tums. I've got a 10-year-old boy, Owen, and a 6-year-old daughter, Charlotte.
I can't believe they're 10 and 6.
Me neither.
How are those babies?
They're a bit growing. They're like little weeds.
Are they kind? Are they not? Like, what are they like at 10 and 6?
Both of my children have their phases, and as anything, they'll say, "There's a phase." I do have a very sentimental and emotional boy, and I have a very kind of badass little girl who pushes the limits and the envelope all the time.
Really?
But I've said from her very young age, and she's only 6, but for years I've said, I'm going to learn far more from this girl than I could ever teach her. I say that sentence all the time because she has a lot of the characteristics that I always wished I had. And then my son
boldness
is
and
delicious
that-
in so many ways because we're very close because he reminds me so much of me. So, and therefore I'm hard on him in certain ways too, because I want him to be better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've only met Charlotte one time, and she was little. She was in her high chair eating spaghetti, to be specific. And even then, she was like super laughy and super gregarious for a little baby. I was like, this baby's got tons of personality. And your son was climbing a doorway and wanted me to tell him jokes, and I would tell him jokes, and he was let's just say he was a tough critic of my jokes.
He's a discerning.
He was a
audience.
discerning.
He's still into
audience.
jokes. He loves
he?
to write. He's a beautifully emotive kind of writer and thinker and emotional. Like he wants to, get all your emotions. He wants to make you laugh. He wants to look at you if you're upset. He wants to understand if you're okay. He wants to check in on you. Whereas Charlotte is like, smell you later.
Smell you later, alligator. Do you learn from them as a creative person?
Oh my goodness, so much. I think you learn about human nature.
Yes.
Watching a child grow into a person from little larvae. You learn about what human nature means and therefore about acting, about being, and what makes somebody act a certain way or think a certain way. I mean, through your children, you could learn even about politics. You could learn
Say
about
more.
you could learn about why some people feel certain things
Yeah.
about humanity and others don't.
Yeah.
Because you can see that, not with my children, because I will say both of my children are incredibly compassionate, both of them, which just makes me so happy about certain things. But you can see in people where some are born with too much on their arm, their sleeve, too much, not sleeping at night because the world is suffering. And then there are people that there is a disconnect, and by no fault of their own. It's a very
Genetic.
egocentric or internal way of thinking. And as much as you don't agree with it, some things are definitely, and much is taught. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But there is something there's a different makeup in us. I do think things can be learned in the positive as well.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a general makeup of human beings that make us feel differently about the world and about people and about things and about, like, for instance, if you don't believe in the wanting to help the environment, there is a short stop there. There's something that doesn't go beyond yourself, you see. It doesn't go beyond this time that is right in your peripheral vision right here. So you learn a lot about kids, creatively and life-wise.
I had a psychiatrist once who, I've never wanted to have children, and the most compelling argument I've ever heard for having children came from this psychiatrist who said, a lot of people have different purposes in life. It could be the acquisition of power. It could be the acquisition of money. It could be to have meaningful, engaged relationships with other people. And I was like, me, that's me. I want meaningful, engaging relationships with other people. And he said, well, one of the most meaningful, engaging relationships available to us is the relationship between a parent and a child. And I was like, that is the most compelling reason I've ever heard. And I think that extends into creativity and observing human nature, knowing oneself, having, like a thoughtful, contemplative, potentially. I know that's not how all people relate to their children. It was one of the most compelling arguments I'd ever heard for having children. And yet I still chose not to. And I'm great with that. But I love that you have that.
Yeah.
I think there's great humility in being a parent if you listen, if you're part of it. There's also the ability to shuffle it off to someone else and really never go there.
Yeah.
But you cannot make a child be who they're not. You cannot make them be something they're not. And what happens is we can do that for ourselves. We can build this facade. We can let the world see whatever we think that we want them to see. You cannot do that for your child. So there's a great humility in that, and you learn a lot about just human nature in general, and you feel that the deepest core of vulnerability kind of come through that.
I was really moved by what you said about critiquing your son, I think you said, who is more like you, and the self-awareness that you have is such a gift, because I do see that and had that growing up where I was, more criticized for certain things than others. And what a gift you must be to those kids, because you know yourself that well and, can just keep an eye on that as you move along.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be aware. I think sometimes my husband accuses me of being, we're over worrying certain things that might have been best left alone. But I'm one of those people who just wants to get it all, talk about it all and everything. But, it's every day's a learning experience. You don't go in with all these tools and you know how to use them and you turn the switch. It's just different every day.
When you reflect on your personal life thus far, is there a line of demarcation, like an event or a chapter that defines your life before that moment and after that moment?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I could answer that, both personally and professionally.
Yes, please.
When I met my husband, I think a lot of things changed just for me personally, just to go from someone doing this as a solo person and then the difference between doing this as a team. And that's very much how we do ours. Not everybody does. But my life, I was a good solo person. I mean, I always dated somebody, but as far as my career and how I was living, I was doing fine. But then to make the decision to be a team, to go forward, that was a huge shift in my life. And then, of course, we added kids to that. So that was 17 years ago.
Can you tell us more about what changed for you and how that affected your creativity or your career, your creative career?
Well, sometimes I don't take for granted that I married an artist, that I fell in love with one who was the son of an artist, who gets it, who is in this business. I think about people often and think about how hard it must be. I remember dating someone very quickly who said something like, "You're going to miss Christmas? At the end of your life, are you going to be glad that you missed Christmas? Are you going to think about, your career? Are you going to think about career? Or are you going to think about those Christmases that you missed with your family?" He was really adamant that that my choices career-wise
Meaning
were,
if you had to stay in New York
well, if I had
for
to do a show,
you couldn't travel to be with the family at Christmas.
Exactly. But that's our reality.
That is our reality.
And it takes nothing. Now, listen, I make Christmas every time I can. I think I've only missed, if we had very few times have I had a Christmas show. I just use that as an example. But I think that sometimes people are in relationships that do go down a path that is not quite right. And it's not, our egos keep us from allowing the person with us to really excel. There's a holding back. I happen to get a guy, I feel, who has said, "I wish you wouldn't do that benefit. The kids and I would love to have you home tonight." And that's a ding ding for me. You're right. But we didn't plan on you being gone for that big job, but you got to take it. You got to take that one. That is a creative, now that doesn't pay so well, but that's a really good creative thing for your soul. I know you're going to be a happier mom and you're going to be a happier wife. There's a little balance of opinion. Now I could say, you don't get to make my decisions. I'm going to do all of them. I'm going to do all the benefits and all the jobs. And I know that I would have made some choices that weren't best for the team. And then ultimately best for me, because the team is so important to me, so integral to my life. So I happen to get a very selfless and kind of generous partner, but I could just imagine the opposite for someone and how you really lose sight of what's important. I don't consider those kind of nudges of, why don't you not do that one, as him holding me back.
Right.
It sounds like it's about a balance.
It's about
he's
a balance.
Discussion partner for you.
Oh yeah, we talk it through.
And it's like a balance.
And you probably do the same for him, I suspect.
Absolutely. I think, what kind of partner or wife or mother of his children would I be if I didn't want him to be the biggest version of himself he could be?
Yeah, that's
right. I want to say, oh gosh, that's such a great opportunity. Even if it's terrible timing, go, do it. Absolutely. And vice versa. We have to feel that we want the best for each other. I've never understood that either with, say, like a divorced couple with children, how one might tear the other down to the children. But ultimately you can bias your children against someone. But if it's their father and they judge their person on who their own father is, their character, what kind of father did I have, or what kind of mother did I have? What kind of person does that make me? Then as the divorced parent, I would never sour, I think no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless we had we're talking about a murderer or something. I'm sorry, this is not who you are.
You know, marry a murderer.
But I'm just saying, to sour the character of the person who's your makeup.
Yeah.
50% of your makeup.
For all the kids of divorced parents, that is a gift. I'm like, is it too late for Kelli O'Hara
I've watched
to be my mom?
Well, I've watched it happen, and I just really feel like it's so detrimental to a person's own feeling about who they are. I think a lot about, oh, I'm like my dad. Oh, that's so much like my mom. Yeah. And a lot of times most of the time I want it to be like, oh, I'm proud of that. But on the negative things, can you imagine if all you ever heard was negative?
Yeah.
I must be that way too.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying, like, I completely lived that, and everything that was about my dad, was a negative, except that the rest of the world would tell me that it was a positive, so you had
a balance.
I had a balance there. But definitely when I got older and in therapy, I did have the opportunity to say to my mom, like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want me to have a great relationship with my father. doesn't sound like you're, headed for that situation yourself, which is great. But that perspective is incredible.
Well, and I know some people, because I have not been through it, but it's, I know that it might seem like I don't have the perspective to talk like that, but I think that it's just important to put the child,
that's right,
the child's well-being.
You've been in close proximity with that. Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a creative thing that you view as a line of demarcation, sort of like my life before, my life after this creative thing?
Well, it's interesting because we live our lives in such a little kind of capsule where we think that what we're doing is very important, or and I feel like I was
not the most important thing.
Well, it's just when people will say, "Oh gosh, I saw you in such and such show. It was right when you started," and you think, "Oh, I was here for many years before that." So I would say that. For the outside world, it was pretty much Light in the Piazza, because I've heard many times, like, that was your first thing, right?
Are you kidding?
I think people say that all the time, but I was, to me, I mean, it was the first, I guess it was the first Tony nomination, but literally I think people thought I got off the bus and got Light in the Piazza or something.
Wow.
And I was 29 years old, 28, whatever I was. But I think career-wise, as far as just getting on that train and writing it, that would have been the kind of the turning point as far as the industry is concerned.
Gotcha.
As far as me then going to another role, to another role, to another role. Because the first big role I had was in a show that didn't make it, Sweet Smell of Success. And so before that, it was ensemble and understudying and things like that on Broadway for the other two or three shows or whatever it was. So I think that is kind of a turning point.
How did it impact you creatively?
Well, the most impactful show creatively for me was The Sweet Smell of Success, because
Really?
I learned, I look back at that, I still weigh if I had had a voice then, if I had the voice I have now.
For people that don't know exactly what you mean by that, what do you mean by that?
I think that when you are a creative person and you're putting together a show, it is absolutely up to you to bring what you can bring to the character. I mean, that's the only reason you're here. But when you're a kid and you haven't been around a lot, I mean, I only came to this business, I came very late, sort of. I didn't grow up really doing a lot of it. And the words on the page and the music in the book, that's what you do. You do it, and you have someone telling you where to go and what to do. I knew at the time that what I was being told to do wasn't as much as she deserved, wasn't as much as I could do. I was deathly afraid of being fired because I was replacing someone who had been.
Yeah.
It was a lot of male energy around me. There was a lot going on. I actually liken it, when I think about it with my eyes closed, I liken the experience to being in a straitjacket. Like I remember my arms, even during the show, standing with them straight down and thinking to myself, I should have a prop. I should be doing something with my body, like some sort of really inexperienced actor is how I felt. Like I should just make a choice to pick that picture frame up and look at it, but I didn't know that I could. And so
you hadn't granted yourself permission to sort of have a say, to have a vote, to have input.
Yes.
Even about what I'm going to do with my arms.
Yeah, but was there something also about the culture that was created during that show that you think added to that feeling?
There absolutely was. Yeah. I mean, overall, there were a lot of positive aspects to it. I worked with some really wonderful, Brian Darcy James, love affair with Brian Darcy James, and everybody was lovely. I loved working with John and Jack Noseworthy and everybody that was in the show. I remember one day speaking up, and I'll never forget it, because once I kind of hit a certain temper, I will. But it makes me very nervous, and I think on it for 20 years. I was rehearsing a scene with Jack, who was my love interest, and I was a woman. I was 24 or 5 years old. I was a woman, and I remember, and the director didn't like the way I was touching him. I think he said, "It looks like you're mothering him," which was not my issue. And I screamed, I know how to touch a man. I knew at that moment that I was right. I knew that I was right. There was nothing wrong with the way, but for weeks I had been feeling, I knew that
stuffing
what was being
down.
seen was not what they want.
Yes.
But then I realized it wasn't what I was doing. It was a perception.
Yeah.
And that gave me a little chutzpah, a little bit. And
the seal was broken.
She got a little bit more strong, but by the time it was just too late.
Yeah.
It was too late. I had a stage manager, giving me notes until places, and until I was in tears every night.
Oh my God.
I was late to my places call because
Isn't showbiz glamorous?
it was like pages and pages of notes that I didn't understand, or I think they were grasping at straws of where the problem was. And
Yeah.
and after that, I grew a pair, and I started to speak up for myself.
Was it a conscious choice?
It was little by little. It was a conscious choice until I started to be in a position where, or put myself in a position where I'm here. Shut up. I've done my work. I earned my spot here, and they want to hear from me.
Yeah.
And I probably learned that from working with probably Bart, who I'd worked, Bart Scheer, who I'd worked with so many times.
Very talented, esteemed Broadway director. Yeah.
I think that knowing that he needed me to speak up. There was a listen. There was a communication that was dependent on both of us speaking up.
Yeah.
Prior to that, did you experience, this is sort of a leading question, but Brene Brown calls it like a vulnerability hangover, that like once you burst out with something that you obviously very much needed to say, did you then have to process a bunch of feelings about having said it, or you were free?
I have never been free a day in my life. Except maybe with my children, and maybe not even then.
Wow.
Well, yes.
I have never been free.
Yes. Do you perseverate on something like an outburst like that? Would you think about it and turn it over and consider it?
I will feel very confident right here speaking to you, and then I will assess it for hours after I leave you, just to make sure that what I say, and I speak without thinking.
You're like us.
I speak without thinking. I don't overanalyze I don't try to be perfect. I don't care to be perfect. Everybody, I have a perception of myself that I think that others think that that I try to be perfect. Like there's a goody two shoe.
That's not my perception of you.
But I've never felt that, except then I'll go and make sure that if I go too far, and by too far in the moment, it didn't feel too far at all. But if I say something that is more than the safe road, I'll think about it, and I'll think about, was that right? Was that, and then I can usually let it go. I can usually say a little bit of, that's fine, but I'll think about it.
Man,
wow.
I am. This is one of those moments where I'm like agog a little bit, because my perception of you is as somebody who is, I'll throw some words out, sane, grounded, warm, loving, funny, free, smart, talented, but free and easy, like free and easy.
I gotta talk to my husband.
Said all these things.
I had
to my husband.
It's interesting to me that I think Cams, I think of you in this way, and I think of myself in this way, that we will then just go over our tracks, just sort of like our mind will noodle over what has been said. We'll check back. Is there any?
Do we need to clean up?
Do we need to clean up anything?
Yeah.
Have I?
But some of it is a very healthy self-reflection that I wouldn't change about myself. But when
it tips to perseveration and anxiety,
then it's too much.
Then for me, I'm only living this life, but for me, it feels, that's where I'm like, oh, easy.
Where's that
because
line?
I want to be free.
Yeah.
Well, that's your conversation. Oh, easy. Mine is shut up. I'm not kidding. Mine is more strangling, but it is, I know the difference between, and I've had lots of anxiety at times and lots of certain types of valleys and dips and highs and lows, but I know the difference between, this is getting out of control.
Yeah.
Shut up. Move on.
Yeah.
Move on. I love all those perceptions you have of me, but nobody is free completely. I don't know, unless
I feel
we're
like
talking
you're like
about
a sociopath or something. Like that's who's free, and that's not good.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and anybody who is
Thoughtful.
thinking about doing no harm in life. Like, what did I say that, or I think because my main objective here is, and when by here I mean here, is do no harm, but also do some good.
Yeah.
And so you do think, if you are a feeling and a compassionate person, you think about, did I offend? I'm not here to like start to badmouth people. I'll think about my conversation about Sweet Smell. I'll think about it because that's the most I've ever said about that particular experience in the room. I'll think about that because I haven't really spoken on that particular thing very much.
I wonder, just jumping back to that, just so that this is useful for people. If you're a artist who is, you're starting to evolve and develop as an artist, I've thought about this myself. Like, when is it time to give yourself, when is it time to listen and learn and absorb? And when is it time to give yourself permission to have a say, to have a vote? And the thing I will add to it is, I don't know if this is always true, but this is what I have said historically, is offering, if you're an interpretive artist, moving through the world as if you're a creative artist, as if you're on the creative team, as if you're a maker, and sharing things and offering things, and then releasing attachment to the outcome.
Right. I think that's the trick. It's the releasing the attachment, because I can distinctly recall the period in my life where I was learning to allow myself to have a voice.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of myself. I'm having a voice. And then I was like, oh, it comes with a consequence.
It comes with a responsibility.
Realize, yes.
Yeah.
And so then I had to link those things of like, oh, I can have a voice. It doesn't mean everyone's going to agree. It doesn't mean I always get what I want, but it means that I get to have said that, and then I can release attachment to it.
Do you have thoughts on that?
Thoughts?
Lots of thoughts. But I also think that now your consequences might have been something you actually heard or read. I think my thought in life is that I actually haven't heard a lot of negative consequences because I've been so safe, which sometimes makes me angry because I just want to explode on social media like everybody else about certain things. And I think that I have played it safe when I should use my voice more. But I think that it's not the consequence that I've read back to myself. It's the assumptions that I make. And not even about the negative. Like if I said something, my entire state of Oklahoma would come after me. Oh, can we pray for you, lost girl? About my certain views and values. It's not, but it's the assumption, like it's.
So you fear a potential outcome, like a future.
Or even in the good, like I might do a big concert and everybody's clapping, but my assumption that not everybody loves the way you sing.
You can't please everyone.
No. And so you have that. There can be a million people clapping, but you think you're being smart with yourself by acknowledging the fact that there's a lot of people who you're not their thing.
Yeah.
That assumption that there's going to be the naysayers, the haters, the whatever it is.
Yeah.
There are going to be the naysayers. And what do you do with that when you have them? Can you ignore them? Do you not look at them? Do you go back and give your retort? Do you make it an argument? Whatever it is. I'm not a huge lover of that kind of combat. I mean, I can be, but sometimes I don't want a stupid argument.
Right.
Because I'm sorry, no matter what anybody says, I will always fight that humanity and equality makes sense. And so the other argument, I have no time for it.
Right.
So I don't understand starting it and then getting belligerent and going back and forth.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to use my time in this way.
Well, that's what I mean. Right. I don't want to give that any air.
Yeah.
I don't even want to give them my voice.
You want to spend time with your family. You want to spend time making things. We want to,
right.
I remember thinking about social media a lot because I've had a really love-hate relationship.
I know that there have been times where, and I don't get a lot of this, but I don't put a lot out because I don't want to use my time in that way. But every once in a while, somebody will zing me, and I have to say, it's hard for me to step away. I'm like, this is a teaching moment, and I find a way to teach.
The whole price of admission that we do.
The price of admission is
really
based on that.
Came from a moment that
on social media.
On social,
where somebody just like was lobbed a criticism, and I lobbed back. Hi, I'm a person. I'm trying something for the first time. It's not perfect, but it's progress. Tell me something or a creative risk you've taken recently. It came out of that. That's what that is born out of. So that's
so positive. But like, I love
that's what I mean by
it's
a teaching moment.
Yeah. And if we don't use our voices for that, and I try to use it in the way I live and the things that I do stand for and the things that I do come out and say and everything. But I'm talking about well, no, you're ugly. You know what I mean? It's like,
no,
it's
fuck
like,
that shit.
yeah, you know, no, no, you are. It just starts to become, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go deeply into it, but there have been a few times recently where I'm like, even things like that, like, that girl, about myself. And I'm like, I will swing back and say, hi, permit me to introduce myself. In 140 characters or less, I'm Susan Blackwell. I'm a person who tries to make the world better by putting creative things out into the world. And usually people are like, I'm going to do better on social.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
I'm going to do better.
Why is it that people are though forgetting that there is a human on the other side? Why do we detach like that?
Because they're tethered to a glass screen. It is very disconnected. In any event. Social media.
Can I ask a related question?
Yeah,
I was going to jump to something related. So one of the topics that we're obsessed with on this podcast is how we process and deal with creative failure or perceived failure. Is there something or a moment that you have felt like you failed at something, and how did you deal with that?
Yes. I mean, there are many. I think I do spend some time on one in particular occasion. And this has been in my journey to just be who I am, which I think at my age, you can start to feel that a little, you can feel the light of that coming through. Maybe not completely, but being just prouder of it. Years ago, when I was doing South Pacific, which was kind of the first show that got a broader audience, I would say. It was a revival, but it did. And Steven Spielberg came to see the show. And I think about this a lot, actually. And the next year, I got pregnant and had my son. And then, so I was a little postpartum. I wasn't feeling my best, but I was out in LA doing a concert. And they called and said, since you're out there, would you like to have a meeting with Steven Spielberg? Because there's a project. Right. I mean, I was like, Spielberg's called.
That's exciting.
This is in my mind, right? That I've got a chance.
Yeah.
And I go there. I didn't feel great about myself physically or kind of just where I was. I was all smushy and really into my baby. And I went in and I sat down with him and we were having this conversation and he says to me, and he's been very, very complimentary about just my album and music. And my first album was kind of jazzy because I had made it with her. He's like, you must love jazz. And I said, oh, yeah. Oh, I love jazz. And I'm sort of thinking American standard jazz, right? He's talking about, Buddy Guy and jazz. But it becomes clear, like as I'm crawling inside myself, even right now, that I don't really... I should have said, I'm not really a jazz person. I'm a jazz aficionado. I enjoy it when I go, but I just don't have a lot of, but I kind of was winding myself up.
Was he starting to go deep into jazz?
Yeah, he was starting to talk about names and I certainly didn't say, yeah, I love her, but I was like, oh yeah,
context clues, that sort of,
oh man.
Yeah. And I think I walked away from I think it was successful in a, we're nice people and we had a nice conversation. But there was no engagement of, you know what? I don't know that. Tell me.
These are deep cuts.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what? I love. I grew up on listening to Ella Fitzgerald and and this kind of. I didn't open it up to the things I know.
Yeah,
the things that I can be really vibrant and.
You crawled inside yourself.
I did, and I tried to be sort of something that I'm not. And I really never heard from him again. I ran into him once, he was very nice, but I think in an interesting kind of artistic, what do you have to say kind of way, if there was a check mark, yay or nay, I feel very much like I got a nay. And I walked out of that room. Now, I don't know what was going to happen for my career or anything like that, but I think when you have the opportunity to make a difference in your journey, as far as your career goes, the more authentic you can be,
that's great advice.
You will either, the check will be made for the wrong reasons. It will be, that's not my type.
Yeah,
but if you are thoroughly who you are, the right thing will say, I got to know more about this person.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we're always thinking we need to fit in with that person when what most artists are looking for is the person they can be inspired by. And I have a lot to say. And if I had said to him that day, you know what I do know though? you know what, I can do this. I did this. I love this kind of music. I grew up doing this, which is so weird because this is what if I had gone into the things that I'm passionate about and just, he might have said, well, not the idea that I had, but now I've got a whole new idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And instead, and I really look on that particular one moment opportunity as a real lost cause because I wasn't who I am.
But you know what?
I wasn't who I am.
You know what
God.
you know what we would say about that? That is an opportunity for a let me try that again. And as long as you're living, and as long as Steven Spielberg is living, or as long as you're living and you're moving through the world with that realization and that knowledge, you get to let me try that again. And next time somebody starts going into some deep jazz cuts and you're not exactly familiar with it, you can say, I don't know that. I'd love to know more about that. Here's what I do know, and light up with what you do know. So I feel like that's one of those, that's a let me try that again that you'll either get to have with Steven Spielberg. Next time you have lunch and you can say, do you know last time we talked?
Not thinking that's going to happen, but I think that, do you think he's listening to Spark File? I think
He will be.
No, but I do think it has made a difference in some other chances I've had like that.
Sure.
So, you take those with you and you learn from them.
I feel like those let me try that again moments where you have obviously given this some thought since it happened, those things that you're like, oh, if I could just do that over again, if I could just have that moment back and get to do it again. You get to do it again next time you're in a situation where you start to crawl inside yourself. You get to go, oh, I'm having a feeling in my body. The feeling is that I'm crawling inside myself, and I'm going to crawl right back outside of myself, and I'm going to use my voice, and I'm going to be authentic. So and that's the let me try that again too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love
retraining
that.
your brain. Like when you get to that impasse, you're like, oh, there's the way I've done it before, and there's a new way.
Kelli, is there a creative thing you need to do before you're done?
Work with Steven Spielberg.
No. Check.
I want to do a play.
Oh,
I really would
do you have
love
something
to do a
specific in
play.
mind?
I don't. And that's where
drama, comedy,
that's where I
dramedy.
I think that it has to be a drama and very, very intricate and familial and dark.
Oh.
And I think that
You're August Osage County.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
I know that woman very deeply.
Yes.
But I think that it's a hard press to shake. Shake the boxes a little bit that we're in. And I also don't think that I'm quite ready. But I think that, or not even quite, but I think that by the time I see myself as someone who wants so badly to continue just being creative, whatever that means, that I'll be ready and I can do it.
Kels, I know that we don't get a vote, but we're going to go ahead and vote.
Let's vote.
You are such a great actor. Not even a singing actor, just an actor. We think you're ready.
Yeah.
When you feel like you're ready, and when you
yes.
find that thing, that vehicle that you feel like is the thing that makes your heart beat faster and your eyeballs become cry balls and makes your ears ring when you read it with that creative team that's just right, we vote that you're ready.
Thank you. I would love to see it for myself. You know what? I would love to feel it and see it and know it. It's that unknown. It's kind of why I went to do an opera. I didn't know what would happen. And it's the scariest thing in the world, but it's the most creative thing to kind of stretch and push. And that's how I feel about a real play, to kind of
yes.
one that is above my grade.
You're so good. You're ready.
You're ready.
She ready.
You're so ready.
I like you girls.
It's true. We speak the truth.
We are here for you.
We speak the truth.
You do so much for so many. What is it all for?
Oh gosh. What is it all for? I don't know. I mean, I think I self-analyze a lot.
You sort of said it earlier. It's for do no harm, and it's for contributing to the greater good.
Yeah. Do no harm and do some good. Do as much good as you can. I just think that's part of part of what I'm here to do.
That's a pretty good what's it all
I
for.
would say so.
All right.
I would
All
say.
right.
Okay.
And finally, who or what is sparking you these days?
Oh, nice. What is really sparking me? Some new projects I have coming are really sparking me. I've been working for several years now with a guy named Arian Moyed with Waterwell. We've been doing some shows. And I'm working on the courtroom this week. Just the kind of projects he and Lee are doing there. You guys,
he's a maker.
Yeah, you guys are makers. I mean, the people that are doing things because it's not for a lot of fanfare. It's to kind of talk about how what we're doing. Loving of the game.
Yeah.
And I said to some students recently, I said, social media wise and everything, you have to ask yourself one question right now as you're heading into this. Are you interested in the celebrity or the craft?
Yeah.
They're two different roads. Pick it.
Two entirely
Do you want to be
different
doing it
tracks.
forever? That's the craft. Do you want it to go up to the top for a minute? That's the celebrity. Choose if you want celebrity or craft and build your world that way. And if you want craft, take a slow local ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Marathon, not a sprint, everybody.
Wise words.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much to our beautiful guest, Kelli O'Hara. That's it. We hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and you fanned it into a creative flame and you'd like to share that, won't you email us at thesparkfile@gmail.com or submit it through our website? That's right. We've got a website. Fancy, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you have to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
And be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, 5-star review it. Hey, listen, if you like this podcast, share it with people you love. If you didn't like it, I don't know. Kelli, what do you say to your critics?
Shut up. That's right.
If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to get still and quiet. You got to put your neuroses on a diet. You got to use your voice like Kelli O'Hara and full on King and I it.
You gotta take it and make it.
Bye. Bye, Kelli O'Hara.
Bye, Kelli.
Love you. Wow.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.